Welcome to Fox Valley today. I'm your host, Anne Vickery, and joining me today in honor, and we should honor them every day, in honor of the Veterans Day coming up this Saturday, November 11th, is Chad Lockman. Chad is an ex-Marine, but I guess once a Marine, always a Marine, right?
That's right, yeah, former Marine.
Former Marine. And Chad is the Superintendent of the Veterans Administration Commission here in Kendall County. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Glad you can make it over. Obviously, with this being kind of working into the celebration of honoring our veterans, you probably have some events coming up over there that you might want to mention that are out there going on.
Definitely. All week this week we have events going on. Monday started at the Oswego Senior Center. There was a concrete eagle statue dedication. The VAC donated that statue to the Senior Center. The dedication was on Monday. After that, there was a pinning ceremony and a lunch. Yesterday was Heritage Woods, I believe. No statue, but a pinning ceremony and a meal. Today is going to be Bickford, I believe. I may have mixed those 2 days up. And then Thursday, there's going to be a breakfast at the Beecher Center, sponsored by the VAC, at 8:30 a.m. We encourage anybody who wants to come to call an RSVP at our office.
Well, you have a big population of veterans here in Kendall County. Do you have any idea how many actual veterans live here in the county?
The numbers that come out each year from the Department of Veterans Affairs list Kendall County as having about 7,700 veterans.
Okay.
We know about 2,200 of them. Either the veterans don't need us or they have never heard of us.
Now, so the federal government keeps track of those guys who have served, who are currently and where they're at, right?
Correct.
But that's really impressive. But if you're serving about 2,200 of 7,700, that's not quite a third of the veteran population who have used your services. That's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot out there that haven't used us or don't know about us. So we're constantly trying to build awareness.
Right. Do most of your services come through medical needs? Are most of them medical needs, or are they financial needs?
Quite a bit of both. Not so necessarily financial, but just things having to do with their service. For instance, they may have a disability that they incurred while they were serving. That may be compensable by the VA.
Right.
But healthcare is way up there. That's one of our biggest services we help provide. Help them get enrolled in the VA healthcare system.
You know, the VA healthcare system came under fire a few years ago. I mean, really was discouraging and in some ways disgusting that the veterans were not getting better treatment in a more timely manner. Do you feel that a lot of that has gotten straightened out? Or did you not see that kind of issue here?
No, myself personally, as well as the veterans that we serve at my office, nobody really has had a problem. The hospital in Chicago has been very good to them. And with such a huge system, I mean, you're going to have problems here or there.
Right, and it could be too that you're better managed. Your particular Veterans Administration Commission is better managed and uses the resources in a better way that get people through the system.
Definitely.
Do you often use the old Silver Cross Hospital for your veterans, or do you still prefer, or do most of them still prefer to go to Maywood?
We have most of our vets still go to Maywood, and then there's an outpatient clinic in Aurora. We have one or two that go to the old Silver Cross Hospital.
Right. I know there's a lot of guys from Grundy County that go over to the Silver Cross. It's just a little easier to get to.
Sure.
So I'm sorry, and I kind of digressed there. I talked a little bit about the fact that you have something going on almost every day. Anything else you'd like to mention?
No, not for this week.
Okay. Anything in particular on Saturday?
Saturday, there are no events that we are sponsoring. Olivia, the assistant superintendent, and then Donovan, the other service officer, and myself, we're all doing our own events either Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday at different local schools. So we'll be speaking about Veterans Day.
Okay, I think that's important to, and kids need to know. I mean, a lot of those kids that are in those younger grades have had parents that have served more recently. We went through a time in somewhere in between Vietnam and the war in Iraq that a lot of those kids just weren't ever a part of that. But a lot of your younger kids now, they understand. Dad or mom were there. So I think that's, and I see you have on your notes $7.7 million in veterans benefits that you've provided to our guys here in the county?
Well, let me make it clear. We don't
Okay.
provide that. We assist them in applying for it.
Okay,
Those are the benefits that
okay.
I know what you meant. Just want to make it clear to everyone. We don't have $7.7 million laying around.
No, well,
But we
you
apply
know.
for these benefits through the Department of Veterans
Right.
Affairs, and these are benefits that those veterans have earned.
Okay. Several years ago, the county passed a referendum that provided a levy for the Veterans Administration Commission to be able to work with our veterans. How is that working out? Are you still being able to work with the county board and get along and try to that money?
Yes, very well. The last two superintendents ago became very friendly, from what my understanding is, and really smoothed things over from the beginning. And we've had a good relationship with the county board since I've been in charge.
Right. What is your budget now?
Our budget, we're sitting just over $350,000 for the upcoming year. We've had reductions the past 2 years on my part. Just spots where we found we can be more efficient and make better use of the taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Excuse me.
What ways would you like to say that you were able to do that?
Just pursuing benefits through other avenues instead of just the county. There are a lot of organizations out there that will provide the same services. It may be quicker, maybe for a less charge, more convenient to the veterans. It all depends on a lot of different things.
You were saying that you had 2,200 vets that you have serviced, or you are servicing throughout that. Does it go from the smallest need to sometimes the greatest need as post-traumatic stress syndrome situations?
Most definitely, yeah. I mean, we run into people that come in and that's their main problem. They can't function because of it. And we point them in the right direction and get them the help they need in order to become, a functional member of society.
I read an article just in the last week that said that about 20% of the guys that come back from Afghanistan, Iraq, you use the term combat zone, which I guess is probably, there's no particular area. Anything could be a combat zone, I guess, if you get caught in the right kind of situation. About 20% of these folks, men or women, veterans, come back with post-traumatic stress syndrome. Do you think that number is about right?
I really can't attest to the accuracy of that number. Like I said earlier, there's people who would say it's too high. There's a lot of people who would say it's too low. I would say that it's low.
You would?
Having been in a combat zone myself, there's a lot that people go through, and it's things that people shouldn't go through. They're not meant to go through.
Right.
But we do it. We're trained to do it, and sometimes there's consequences.
Now, when you say that, and I'm just kind of asking you your own personal opinion, and I know you're not a professional counselor or anything like that, but when you say, when you were going through training, they trained you to go in, get ready, be ready. What terms did they use to make you think that you could do all that they asked?
I don't know that there was a specific term, just the mindset. I really don't, I don't know, Marine Corps boot camp, for instance, I mean, everything is, you're given a command and you respond with the word kill or something like that.
Right.
A bunch of 18, 19-year-olds, that's how old we were, and they made us into
somebody who
machines.
Right, who was capable of following the command to do what you was called to do.
Correct.
Right, and but then in terms of that, as you kind of have been able to separate yourself from that, you also said, just in your first comment was, we're human beings. That's not what we do, basically.
Correct.
We're not built to go out and kill people unless you're trained to do it. And did you feel when you went in, when you were ready to go into combat, that that's what you could do it?
I was terrified.
Were you?
Yeah, I think we all were. But you have people next to you that you know and that you love, that are family to you, and you do anything for them. So,
I often wondered about the term when I've heard that as people who are afraid to admit that they're afraid. You think that's common as that's fairly common with people. I mean,
Yeah, and afraid to say you're afraid, that's a little harsh, I think, because I know a lot of people that are like that,
right?
by your definition. But I'm afraid to say they're afraid. I mean, it's part of the mindset that's
Right.
ingrained in you.
Right.
Weakness is, you can't be seen.
Right, you cannot exhibit that, right?
Correct.
Right, and I'm proud of you guys that can, they put you through it. They put you through it, and I'm proud that any of you guys that can survive it. Which kind of brings me a little bit to the latest incident that took place in Texas, and we were talking about we were talking about this off camera, was the fact that the guy who ended up helping bring this shooter down explained, I don't know if you heard the interview, but the guy was very emotional. It brought tears to my eyes watching the guy. He was actually a trainer for the NRA, so he was able to identify when he started hearing these shots that this was the kind of gun that people were probably dying from across the street from him in that church. He got his rifle and he shot this guy twice. Now, he didn't give him the kill shot. The guy ended up pulling over and putting a bullet through his head. But he said on camera with tears in his eyes, "I was so afraid. Don't call me a hero. I was so afraid." And I mean, but the right guy in the right place at a terrible time. Able to identify what kind of gun that was, able to identify that people were dying, and still brave enough to get out his own gun and face this guy down if he had to.
Yeah, that takes enormous guts, in my opinion.
Enormous.
A lot of it probably went into his training as a trainer with the NRA.
Right.
You can build that muscle memory all day, how to pull a weapon, how to reload and stuff like that. But if you don't have the mental capacity to back it up, it's worthless in a fight.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely took guts.
You know what? You just said it the best way. I think that that could be said. Part of this whole issue with the shooter here, they were talking about, and you kind of updated me a little bit on that, said that, explain to us what the background on this guy was.
I mean, it's my understanding he was in the Air Force, and had some sort of domestic issue with his family on a base, and he had been maybe prosecuted under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which my understanding is not automatically reported to the state. I could be wrong there, but
well, I think even if it was supposed to, it didn't get through, right?
I think so. Yeah,
right.
That's what I understand so far.
So, and I did not realize that if you had a domestic charge against you, that you were not supposed to be able to. Is it buy a weapon or own a weapon? Can they? Do you know? I mean, maybe you do or don't know.
The state of Illinois, I know it's on the form when you go to purchase a weapon.
Have you ever?
If you've ever been convicted of a domestic issue. And I'm pretty sure that's a disqualifier.
Right, that's it. Yeah, I think the whole thing is just is very, very, very tragic, and those people never stood a chance in there. No. That guy was totally insane. But the Air Force usually doesn't train people to the level of combat that a Marine or somebody in the Army is trained to, right?
I mean, they have their own special teams that do certain things.
Right.
But their specialty mainly is the air.
Right. So they don't there's not a lot of hand-to-hand combat of being almost like the first guys on the ground there. They're above, right?
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same way with there's the Navy SEALs who are highly trained, but they're really Marines, aren't they?
No, that's not correct.
It's not correct?
No.
The Navy and the Marines aren't
The Marine Corps is part of the Navy. It's a department of the Navy.
Uh-huh.
The Navy provides our medical corps and our chaplain service.
Right.
But that's really, and we depend on them for rides.
Right.
to different places.
Okay.
So.
Well, we don't want to dismiss those Navy guys if they we'll get in a lot of trouble. Well, we'll take a little bit of a break and we'll be right back with Chad Lockman, who is the superintendent of the Veterans Administration here in Kendall County. We'll have a lot more to talk about.
I just moved in with his family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
We'd do anything for kids. Yet 1 in 6 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. Help end childhood hunger near you. Learn how at feedingamerica.org.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
Good job!
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
What can we do? Welcome back to Fox Valley Today. I'm here with Chad Lockman, who's Superintendent of the Veterans Administration Commission in Kendall County. Chad's here obviously because we're ready to celebrate Veterans Day coming up on Saturday, November 11th. And I just kind of wanted to touch base on some of these other things, Chad, that you have here. The Kendall County Board VAC 15-year recognition, that's coming up on the 21st. What is that? Is that 15 years since the commission was incorporated?
That's correct, yes. December 2002.
Right. Arnie Bitterman, I think, was
Yes.
on the, right. That was quite a challenge to get that up and running.
So here.
There were many emotional issues and financial issues to deal with on that, but you know, no battle is won just by walking in the door.
Correct.
You usually got to break the door down.
He was a Marine too.
Yeah,
so.
right. And Arnie definitely was ready to break the door down. But that didn't go. Some of that didn't go over too well with some of the board members. You know, I was glad to hear you guys donated the eagle. Did you have it painted, or is it just still
Yes,
just in the concrete?
it was painted.
Okay. Did you buy it locally?
Yes, I couldn't tell you exactly where. I'd like to give a shout out, but I can't.
Yeah, wasn't in
unfortunately.
Montgomery by chance?
I couldn't tell you.
You couldn't. Okay, yeah. I just kind of wondered. I know there's a kid up there who does a lot of work with concrete and making those kinds of things. You said in the last 2 years you guys have had a lot of growth.
Yes, we have.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's mainly due to the outreach efforts in the community. Olivia Lashover, the assistant superintendent, she doubles as the outreach coordinator.
Right.
Pretty much, she's been turned loose. And
And she's got such a great personality.
She does.
And
She
she's
really
such.
does.
She's so open and kind.
Definitely. Built many relationships within the community, mainly at the assisted living facilities, Oswego, Yorkville, Plano. Puts on presentations there, gets the word out for our office, what we do, what benefits are available to veterans.
Right.
And most of these veterans had no clue.
They don't.
So,
You know, and you got to think about this. You know, a lot of these guys came home from Vietnam, whatever. They went to work at Caterpillar or in, you know, as an operator or a carpenter or whatever, and they just went about their business.
absolutely.
And years later, some of this stuff starts coming back to get them. I mean, you know, and I don't mean necessarily emotional, but maybe some old injury from a knee or a hip or something that they're going to need some help with.
Definitely.
So I think that's great to get out in the community, say, hey, we're here to help you. let's talk a little bit. You had a golf outing last May, and are you gonna try to do that again this year?
No, actually, it was we participated in a golf outing.
Oh,
for
you
the,
did?
For the Yorkville Chamber. We sponsored a hole. There
Okay.
was quite a bit of interest in our office, and we got quite a bit of encouragement to do our own golf outing next year.
Oh,
So tentatively, we have it scheduled in May. We're seeking golfers and sponsors.
oh, okay. Well, you had here. Oh, I see. You meant you got it at 17. And you mean like you're gonna do it this next year?
That's correct.
Okay, I get it. I thought we were talking about something that did. So, what kind of sponsors? Anybody in particular? Just anybody who'd like to sponsor? Is this going to be so much a whole that you want people to sponsor?
We haven't yet worked out those figures.
Uh-huh.
I'm still running everything by the board first.
Right.
It's got to be given the go ahead, but it's looking pretty good. Anyone who wants to support veterans,
Okay.
whether it be individuals, corporations, anybody.
Right. And do you know where you're going to have this yet?
Blackberry Oaks.
Okay, that's a great golf course, and they do a good job over there of serving a good meal. Other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was the Purple Heart community.
Yes.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that and how that came about.
Okay, so the Purple Heart community, it comes from the Military Order of the Purple Heart, which is a veteran service organization started by Purple Heart recipients in order to protect the benefits and the sanctity of the award. Being a Purple Heart community just signifies that you support those veterans who have been awarded the Purple Heart for either making the ultimate sacrifice or being wounded in combat. And that's something that should never be forgotten by any community.
Right.
Every county building you'll see has a Purple Heart flag flying in front of it, as do the surrounding communities that have also taken part and become Purple Heart communities. So very supportive.
Yeah. Well, we probably have a number of Purple Heart recipients here in the county.
Indeed.
I'd love to get one of them on our program one day if they would be open enough to want to talk about their own experience. Tell us a little bit about your VAC board. Who is on it?
Well, the VAC board consists of 2 members, a delegate and an alternate from each veteran service organization in the county.
So that would be the Marines?
No, it'd be each American Legion post,
Oh, I see. Okay.
each VFW post.
All right.
If there are any other congressionally or state chartered veteran service organizations in the county, they are entitled to have 2 representatives serve on the Veterans Assistance Commission board.
Okay. And so that means you have a total of 3?
There's a total of 5 posts
Okay.
currently.
Oh, from each post. I get it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I get it. So you have a member from each of those posts is considered to one of your delegates as your.
Correct. There's a delegate and alternate from each post. There's
Okay.
10 members altogether.
All right. Okay, I get it. And how often do you meet?
We meet 5 times a year.
Do you?
Yes.
And they go over your budget and your service, the amount of service that you're providing, and any of the needs that they might have to step up and talk about with
Correct.
other people.
Yep.
And
They keep me in line.
Right. Okay. How are you? We talked a little bit about your budget, and where do you see? Do you see your budget having to increase in the next few years to provide more and more service, or do you think you're in pretty good shape?
I think we're in very good shape right now. There was some concern earlier in the year with the Caterpillar plant closing.
Yes.
Being the biggest employer in Kendall County, that's going to be a little bit of a hit for some people. But it's my understanding that they have agreements with several different organizations, and we have not seen anyone that's going to be looking for benefits because of their layoff or.
Right. Well, and then they've extended this whole idea that they were going to close it by a certain date. They've backed off on that because Caterpillar's business has picked way up. So, and if you don't believe me, go look at their stock. I think they're about $137 a share now. Their business, and they've done better. So they're not in any big hurry all of a sudden to leave and to close that plant because it's still making them money. So let me ask you a question. If there's any young people who are considering going into the service right after high school, do you ever encourage them to maybe come and talk to you, or do you go out and talk to them? I know every branch of the military has their own recruiters, but do you ever get any of those young people that come in and talk to you about your experience?
I've had a couple younger people interested in joining that have come in with parents or relatives that are in my office anyways. And yeah, I'll give them a pointer. I'll tell them, do your best and keep your head up, and it's gonna be rough some days, most days. I won't lie to them.
Right.
But no, I don't go out. I don't go out and seek opportunities
Right.
to talk to people. But I'm more than happy to speak with anyone who wants to listen.
Of the young people, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. Recruiters are there to sell their branch of service, to get some of those young people, and the service is more picky now about who they take in, right?
Yes.
I mean, it used to be if you dropped out of high school and you didn't have any place to go, you just go join the Army. That's not the way it is anymore, is
Not
it?
so much. No.
I mean, they never even used to test you to get in. Now they do, right?
Yeah, you take a vocational aptitude test.
And what is that? The whole idea is to try to find out not only intellectually, but what you might be good at.
Correct. Yeah, find your strengths.
Uh-huh.
Where you might best fit in.
Did you take the test?
Yes, everybody takes it.
And okay, well, yeah, I didn't know how long they'd been testing. And what did they tell you about yourself?
That I wasn't too good with mechanics. So I wasn't
But
able.
you're good with the gun. No?
If you can say that. Yeah.
Well,
every Marine's good with a gun.
yeah.
So.
If you're not, you will be.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it gives them a picture of where they might be best off putting you.
And I mean, if you scored high intellectually, they might put you in, into some other, technology type thing, or. But
Yeah,
everybody's going to go through the basic training, the
Correct.
same.
Correct. And you can score very highly in an intellectual subject, but still want to go in the infantry. You got to have smart people there too.
Yeah, right, right. You got to be.
So-
Well, the only thing is you got to be smarter than the enemy, right?
Yeah,
Or a
yeah.
better shot, right? Yeah. Do you have any particular books or experiences that you any in particular books that you have found that have been really true to life as to what goes on in the combat zone?
There's a couple that jump out at me right away. The first one, these are both books on the Marine Corps.
Okay.
I'm a little biased.
That's all right.
Generation Kill by Evan Wright. I believe it was published in 2004, 2005. It tells the story of a Marine reconnaissance battalion during the invasion of Iraq. A lot of the clusters and just miscommunications and a lot of the negative things that happen within a command.
You mean it wasn't shock and awe?
Oh, it was shock and awe. Big
but,
time shock
but for
and awe.
both sides.
A little bit, yeah.
Right, okay. That's by Evan Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
Yes.
And that's called Generation Kill.
Yeah, and then they made an HBO series out of it also.
Really?
That's pretty good. I wouldn't recommend it for your under 13,
Really?
but yeah.
Okay.
Another good book that really outlines the accuracies of being in a combat zone is the book Jarhead.
Jarhead.
Yeah, and that's by Anthony Swafford. And that was published back in, I want to say, the late 90s, early 2000s. Also made into a movie. Jake Gyllenhaal.
It did.
Yeah.
I don't remember really the movie, but those were about Marines.
It was, yeah, the
They're
Marines in during Desert Storm. Yeah, just it highlighted the boredom that happens in a combat zone or anywhere in the military. You're mostly bored.
Well, yeah, you're either sitting there always on edge, or you're not doing anything, waiting for something to happen, right?
Correct.
That's all part of it.
Yeah.
Chad, thank you very much for joining us today. Again, thank you for all that you've done for our country. Thank you for what you're doing for our veterans today. It takes a special guy.
Oh, I enjoy every minute of it. Thanks for
Right.
having me.
And we're always glad to have you. Thank you very much for joining Fox Valley today. Do what you can to support our veterans. They'll thank you, and so will our country. Have a great day.